if we're going to dive into the next thing, we talked about automation. We talked about more learning models, skills gap. Let's go back to automation for a quick moment. What's possible? What can be automated? I think about this in 4 S's. I was going to hit the two back end. I'll hit that in a second. Though there's a 4S strategy to approaching any automation project, and it's quite simple. You have simple projects and complicated projects, and you have defined requirements and ambiguous requirements, or defined processes and ambiguous processes. And each one of these categories fits in there to where, so if you have something that's defined and simple, you can simulate it. It's actually repeating the behavior. And now that's automated. You see that a lot in business process automation and workflow automation technologies, robotic process automation technologies. This is, scanning an invoice. This is, putting out a sales memo. This is continuous documentation that must be sent inside. This DocuSigns of the world. The things that are paper pushing, the things that are you click buttons. Typically simpler things that you have a defined process for. And then you have the complicated and defined, and these are supplemental automation contributions. And these are actually the roles that are interesting. We're seeing this in the telecommunications space for telemarketing. We're seeing this in the SDR space for sales development representatives or lead setters. We're seeing this in early marketing analysis. We're seeing this in the financials for financial assistance. There's automation technology coming out across every department and industry that's creating that supplemental support and that supplemental value for teams. And then you go to the ambiguous side. These are the more human things. These are things that have more variability, more change. There's a subjective feeling, well, I could do that, though, this person's a good person and they've done all these things in the past and I have this institutional knowledge. I'm going to make these decisions because, right? Those ambiguous decisions that are made. And when you think about the simple ones, you have support. So where you're actually lifting up that person who's typically making that decision. And it's often individual, right? So the neat thing, the simpler version of ambiguous is typically 1 to 2 people. The complicated ambiguous is typically teams, where there's multiple people involved in making a delivery happen, and you start slicing. We go through an approach and a technique to actually slice what can be done with technology and automation being adopted, and what makes sense to be able to keep in the hands of the experts that are on your team. This is a slide that I use very frequently in some of my trainings and the work that I do with my teams. We'll actually go through each of those and identify the pieces that are automatable at each organization I work with. And we work from here to identify where the best value is and where they start. So this is just, the strategy that I'll use, and I share it with you to be able to understand how we approach that. A couple examples. Yes?
Sounds like lean thinking and value stream mapping.
Just sounds like it. Just so happens. Very similar. Very similar. And in terms of examples of existing automations, we're seeing everything. Again, I gave some examples, though you're seeing customer communications around giving them their welcome and their onboarding, assigning new team members to different tasks, reconciling, billing and invoices, setting up provisional support, continued training and scheduling, coordinating admin-based work, and then ultimately sharing updates and really sharing information between teams asynchronously. So you're able to deliver, better experiences, faster time value for customers. Let's turn those are examples of things. Another example, just as a workflow, you can see, the consumption of data actually going into reporting and slicing, making it visually appealing. And then you can actually see that go into processing tools that based on specific protocols, you can call it if this, then that's. A lot of these are actually more robust to where they're able to identify the different factors that influence it and then recommend which division in which direction it can go, if there's certain teams that need to be put onto it, or if individuals can take care of it, and then it's actually assigned appropriately. So we're seeing completely streamlined processes be able to create value internally to shorten the time cycle that people actually need to be able to deliver. And this ultimately sees us, we're seeing product delivery cycles decrease, and then return on investment, I call it return on automation, increase. Again, the 2 things that we want to think about when and when not to use automation. And this is, when can it be asynchronous and when can it be synchronous? When do we need to actually be together? The asynchronous moments, 3 real easy places. We're getting real-time updates. That's by far my favorite piece, the thing that I think is most important as a data person, is the real-time visibility into what's actually happening in your organizations across multiple teams. We have the ability to implement technology that can abstract, consume the data, and then create dashboards and visuals in a way for you to process it and make strategic executive decisions in minutes when it used to take weeks, because you have that access now. The pieces of documentation being captured in real time, whether that's the natural language processing technology that exists to be able to auto capture conversations and then share them inside of notes and directly send them to peers who were not on that conversation. That's significantly advanced these days. And then general team updates when anything of significance happens. Again, this is when deals close. This is when deliverables are finished and passed on to the next. This is when team members are leaving, are being onboarded. All these things around those updates. These are great opportunities for you to adopt automation technology. Though the things that you may want to stay clear of, things you want to keep human, things that you want to make sure you prioritize your team for. Conflict resolution continuously is an element where you want to have that direct. Don't automate your conflict resolution. Like, what are you doing? We know this. This should be simple. This is expected for you to understand. Team building. We talk about that. We even highlighted that earlier, right? When we talk about the difference in online versus in-person training. There is an element to human communication where you're building rapport, you're building trust. I have not met an automation system yet that can build trust the way that people can. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying I don't see it yet. So in terms of, please keep doing those things. And one of the most important that I often get in debates about is all hands on deck when you're delivering new product. All hands on deck when you're delivering anything that's going to market. We want to make sure that we have an energetic buy-in from the team to be able to create and debug and show up and celebrate. We're not saying things are going to go wrong. You want people available though really you want to celebrate the creation of something new. And so these are areas where I think automation doesn't belong, and you can really continue the prioritization of your people here. Just 3 quick ones. Oftentimes people ask, all right, so this is really great, Mark. I want to start now. What do I do? What do I use? I said, you're funny. Here's a quick visual of some products that you could or could not use. Here, have your fun. We segment them into 3 different categories, whether it's RPA, robotic process automation, BPA, business process automation, and then workflow automation. All of these technologies have different capabilities. They have different user interfaces, different strengths, different weaknesses. They serve different niches, industries, different regulatory requirements. Again, there's a lot. I know most of them, not all of them. So again, happy to help and discuss. And ultimately, as I talked to the very first piece, every team is likely going to have a automated implementation that's unique to their team based on the skills of the people on their team, based on the mission of their organization and the intended value they desire to create for their customers. Additionally, on top of automation is integration. And I say this again, integration is to make whole. This is the beauty of it. We can automate certain things, though. When we're talking about that real-time visibility, it comes from integration. It comes from being able to share data points between each other. And so here's, a handful of the platforms that exist in the iPaaS space, just as an example. The results, as you'd imagine, we're seeing organizations get, interdepartmentally, double-digit returns, compounded between the entire organization's triple-digit returns in terms of return on investment, return on automation. And